I never imagined my life would unravel into something that felt pulled from a soap opera, the kind of scandal whisper behind coffee cups at the local diner. I wasn't a remarkable man, not the wealthiest, not the most charismatic, but I worked hard, loved deeper than most, and built my world around the woman I married. Julia and I had been together for 10 years. A decade of shared bills, birthdays, arguments, and quiet mornings over burnt toast. We were like anyone else, imperfect but committed, or so I thought. The unraveling began slowly, so subtly it almost escaped notice. Julia had started spending more and more time away. Girls' nights, late work dinners, yoga retreats that seemed to come out of nowhere. At first, I told myself not to worry. Everyone needs a little space, right? A breather from the routine. I chalked it up to stress, or maybe her need for something that I hadn't been providing. But something shifted, something quiet and unsettling. Her phone became a wall I wasn't allowed to see behind. She started carrying it everywhere, even from one room to the next, clutching it like it held the meaning of her life. If I entered the room, she'd flip it over without a word, the way someone shields a secret. That nagging pit of suspicion grew inside me, hollow and aching, but I shoved it down. I told myself I was imagining things, that maybe I hadn't been as present, that maybe she was just protecting her peace. But doubt is like rot beneath the floorboards. It spreads in silence, and by the time you hear the creak, it's already deep. One evening, while she was in the shower, I sat on the edge of our bed, hands trembling, and reached for her phone. A line had been crossed, but I had to know. I unlocked it and started scrolling. It didn't take long. There was a text thread with someone named Brian. The words leapt from the screen like venom. Explicit, shameless, photos, videos, plans for getaways I hadn't heard of, images that scorched their way into my memory and left a bitter aftertaste I couldn't spit out. My stomach knotted. My hands shook. It felt like the room was tilting. The woman I had built my life with, who I believed in without question, was giving herself to someone else. I could have stormed into that bathroom right then, could have shouted, thrown her phone against the wall, demanded answers, but I didn't. Maybe I was paralyzed by shock, or maybe some deep part of me wanted to understand the shape of the wreckage before I stepped into it. So I set the phone down and waited. That night, I barely closed my eyes. I lay beside her in silence, staring into the dark, listening to the rhythm of her breath, wondering how long it had all been a lie. In the days that followed, I became a stranger in my own home and a detective in my own marriage. I combed through phone records, credit card statements, emails, and the truth became impossible to deny. Brian wasn't a passing fling. He was someone I'd shaken hands with at office parties. Her co-worker, a man I had trusted by extension, whose laugh I had tolerated over cheap wine and catered appetizers. The betrayal was surgical, quiet, precise, and deeply personal. But I didn't explode. I didn't accuse. I planned. The first step was a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but a top-tier divorce attorney who knew how to untangle complicated knots and leave the cleanest cuts. Then came documentation. Every text, every call log, every suspicious charge from hotels or weekend retreats she claimed were team building. I even hired a private investigator to seal the cracks with hard proof. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about clarity, about holding the truth steady enough that it couldn't wriggle free. And then came the day. We sat across from each other at the dining table, a place where we had once shared coffee and crossword puzzles, now a war zone waiting for the first strike. She was scrolling through her phone, glass of red wine in hand, unaware of the avalanche approaching. I looked at her, really looked, and I couldn't find the woman I once loved in the person sitting across from me. "Julia," I said quietly but firmly, "we need to talk." She didn't even look up at first, just sighed and muttered, "Can it wait? I'm in the middle of something." "No," I said, voice low, "it can't. I know about Brian." She froze. For a single heartbeat, her mask slipped, eyes wide, lips parting. Then came the denial, as rehearsed as a script. "What are you talking about?" I reached down and placed a thick folder on the table, sliding it toward her like a final verdict. "This." She hesitated, then opened it, and page by page, her face drained of color. Screenshots, photos, dates, receipts. There was no space left to lie. Her silence broke into something colder. "You went through my phone?" she hissed, trying to sound outraged. "Do you realize how invasive that is? You're being petty." That word, petty. I stared at her, stunned. Petty. I repeated slowly, tasting the insult. "You've been lying to me, cheating, sneaking around with someone I've welcomed into my life. And I'm the petty one." She faltered then, searching for some kind of foothold. "I didn't mean for it to happen. You've been distant lately, always working." I felt neglected. I laughed, not from amusement, but from disbelief, the kind that scrapes the inside of your ribs. "Neglected? That's your excuse? You had every chance to talk to me, every chance to say you were hurting. But instead, you decided to burn down our marriage behind my back." Tears gathered in her eyes. She reached for the part of me that used to flinch when she cried. But that part was gone. All that was left was a quiet, unyielding calm. I reached into my bag and pulled out a second folder. "What's that?" she asked, voice cracking. "Divorce papers," I replied, sliding them toward her. "You'll see I've already signed. All that's left is your signature." Her hands shook as she picked them up. "You can't be serious. We can fix this. I made a mistake. We can come back from this." I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. "No, Julia, you made a series of choices, and this is the consequence." The weeks that followed were a blur of court dates, tense conversations, and drawn-out logistics. Julia tried to claw her way back, apologies soaked in tears, promises whispered through wine-stained lips, attempts to seduce me as if that would erase the wreckage. But it was all hollow. She wasn't sorry for what she did, only sorry it no longer belonged to secrecy. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. I kept the house, my car. Most importantly, I kept my dignity. Julia moved in with Brian not long after, but the fantasy didn't hold. Word got back to me through friends that it didn't last. Without the thrill of deception, the flame burned out. As for me, I healed. Slowly, painfully, but truthfully. There were nights when the silence felt heavier than her betrayal. Mornings where I still reached across the bed out of habit. But piece by piece, I rebuilt. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm just awake now. Clear. I know what I deserve. Julia once called me petty. Maybe I am. Maybe protecting your heart with boundaries looks like pettiness to people who only respected you when they thought you'd stay no matter what. But if refusing to be a doormat means wearing that label, I'll wear it proudly. Because in the end, I didn't just survive her betrayal. I stood up, looked in the eye, and walked away stronger. And her? She's just a cautionary tale told by the man who refused to stay broken.